Welcome back to our channel, where real stories touch the heart and remind us that kindness, respect, and courage are never out of style. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and stay till the end, because today's story will leave you speechless, and maybe even change the way you treat strangers forever. It all began on an ordinary afternoon in a small, quiet American town, the kind of place where people still waved at each other from across the street, where everyone knew the local diner and the folks who ran it. Inside that diner sat an elderly couple, William and Margaret. They were in their late 70s, married for more than 50 years. William had served in the military decades ago, and Margaret had spent her life as a schoolteacher. They came to this diner every Sunday for lunch. It was their tradition, a small moment of joy they looked forward to all week. They always ordered the same thing: grilled cheese sandwiches and 2 glasses of Coca-Cola. They would sit near the window, talking softly, holding hands across the table. Their love was the quiet kind, not loud or dramatic, but the sort that had endured storms, wars, and losses. But on that day, something terrible shattered that peace. 3 young men, maybe in their early 20s, walked in laughing loudly. They weren't from around there, loud, arrogant, the kind of people who thought being cruel was funny. They took a booth nearby, ordered drinks, and started whispering and snickering at William and Margaret. At first, the couple ignored them. William smiled gently, holding Margaret's hand, trying not to make a scene. But then one of the men, a tall guy with tattoos all over his arms, said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hey, look at Grandpa and Grandma over there. Ain't it cute? They still think it's 1950. The others laughed. William pretended not to hear. Margaret's face turned red with embarrassment. But before they could even finish their meal, things got worse. The young men got up, went to the counter, and ordered more Coca-Cola, not to drink, but for something crueler. They came back laughing, holding the cups. One of them said, "Hey old man, you thirsty?" And before anyone could stop them, they threw the drinks right at William and Margaret. Cold soda splashed across their clothes and faces. Margaret gasped. The entire diner went silent. The waitress froze. No one moved. The young men just stood there, laughing. William tried to speak, but his voice trembled. He looked down, ashamed, trying to wipe the sticky liquid off Margaret's shawl. She was shaking. Not from cold, but from humiliation. And yet, not one person in the diner spoke up. People watched, shocked, afraid, or maybe just unsure what to do. Until one man stood up. From the corner of the diner, a tall, broad-shouldered man wearing a hoodie turned his head. His eyes were calm but intense, the kind that told you he'd seen far worse things than this. He took off his hood, and his short military-style haircut caught the light. He quietly walked to the table where William and Margaret sat. Gently, he put his hand on William's shoulder and said, "Mom, Dad, are you all right?" Everyone froze. The 3 men stopped laughing. One of them muttered, "Wait, that's your son." The man didn't answer. He turned slowly toward them, his expression unreadable. "You thought this was funny," he said, his voice low and controlled. The tallest of the 3 sneered. "Hey, calm down, man. It was just a joke." "A joke," the man said softly. "You threw drinks on my parents." The room fell silent again. At that moment, the waitress recognized him. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's David. David Henderson, the Navy SEAL who had served in Afghanistan, the local hero whose name was on the town's welcome sign. The man who had saved lives under fire, awarded for bravery. And now, he was standing face to face with 3 bullies who had no idea who they'd messed with. David didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply walked closer, so close that the tallest bully had to look up to meet his eyes. "You think it's funny to humiliate people who can't defend themselves," David said, "to hurt someone for laughs." The guy tried to act tough. "Hey man, we didn't mean nothing by it." But David didn't blink. "Say you're sorry," he said. The second bully scoffed. "Or what? You gonna hit us?" David leaned in slightly, his voice calm but powerful. "No," he said, I don't hit children. But I do know how to make you understand what respect means. Something in his tone, that cold military composure, made all three men step back. You could see it in their faces, the arrogance was melting into fear. The diner was dead silent. Even the clock ticking on the wall seemed loud. David reached into his pocket and pulled out a napkin, handing it to Margaret. "It's okay, Mom," he said gently. "You're safe." Margaret smiled weakly, tears in her eyes. William reached out to squeeze his son's hand. "Son," he said softly, "don't make a scene." But David shook his head. "It's already a scene, Dad. I'm just making sure it ends right." Then he turned back to the bullies. "Pick it up." "What?" one of them said. "The cups," David said. "Pick up what you threw." For a moment, they hesitated. But his stare didn't waver. Finally, one of them bent down and started picking up the spilled cups, napkins, ice, everything they'd thrown. David watched them the whole time. "Now," he said, "you're going to walk to that counter, apologize to the waitress for the mess, and pay for every single meal in this diner." Everyone's. The bullies looked at each other. "Man, you serious?" "I'm not asking," David said. "I'm telling you." There was something in his voice, authority, confidence, a lifetime of discipline. These weren't just words. They came from someone who had stared death in the face and never flinched. Slowly, they did as he said. They walked to the counter, red-faced, muttered apologies, and pulled out their wallets. The waitress stood there, stunned. When they finished, David said one last thing. "Now leave. And next time you think it's funny to hurt someone, remember this moment." The three walked out quietly, their laughter gone. As soon as the door closed, the entire diner erupted in applause. People who had been silent moments ago stood up, clapping, cheering, some even crying. Margaret looked at her son, smiling through her tears. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes, I did," David replied. "Because people like that only stop when someone shows them what strength really looks like." William nodded proudly. "That's my boy." They sat back down, and for the first time in minutes, peace returned to the room. The waitress came over with a fresh pot of coffee and said, "Lunch is on the house, sir." "And thank you for everything." David smiled. "No need for that. Just make sure my parents get their grilled cheese warm this time." Everyone laughed, the tension melting away. But the story didn't end there. A man sitting near the back, a quiet man in his 40s, pulled out his phone and had secretly recorded the entire event. He uploaded the video that night with the title, "They threw Coca-Cola on an elderly couple, then found out their son was a Navy SEAL." Within hours, it went viral. Millions watched as justice unfolded in real time. Comments flooded in from all over the world. People praising David for standing up for respect, for teaching a lesson without violence, for showing what true strength looks like. One comment read, "This is how real men act. Calm, controlled, and righteous." Another said, "To the bullies, let this be your wake-up call. To the parents, you raised a hero." Even the local police saw the video and reached out. Though David didn't press charges, the bullies were brought in for questioning. The diner owner decided to post a sign outside that said, "Kindness served here, disrespect not tolerated." Over the next few weeks, something amazing happened. The diner became a symbol of hope. People came from neighboring towns just to sit at the same table where William and Margaret always sat. They wanted to meet them, to thank them for raising a son like David. Margaret would smile and say, "We just taught him to always do what's right." David, meanwhile, returned to his Navy base. When asked by a reporter how he felt about the viral fame, he simply said, "I didn't do anything special. I just stood up for my parents, and for what's decent." But the story continued to inspire. Schools started using the video in anti-bullying programs. Veterans groups shared it as an example of moral courage. Even online, where cruelty often spreads fastest, people found something good to hold on to. A month later, the same three young men came back to the diner. But this time, things were different. They weren't laughing. They weren't loud. They walked in quietly, hats in their hands. William and Margaret were there again, at their usual table. The leader of the group stepped forward. "Sir, ma'am," he said nervously, "we just wanted to say we're sorry. What we did was wrong. We were drunk, stupid, and mean. And your son, he showed us something we'll never forget." Margaret looked at them kindly. "We accept your apology," she said. William nodded. "Everyone makes mistakes," he added. "But not everyone learns from them. I hope you do." The young men nodded, thanked them, and quietly left. And that, in a way, was the real ending. Not revenge, not anger, but redemption. David later said to a friend, "If standing up once can make even a few people change, then it was worth it." This story reminds us that true strength doesn't come from fists. It comes from discipline, respect, and standing up for what's right without losing control. You see, anyone can react with anger. But it takes real power to respond with calm justice. So next time you see someone being mistreated, remember this story. You don't have to be a Navy SEAL to stand up for what's right. You just have to have the courage to care. And maybe, just maybe, you'll change a life, or even save one. Thanks for watching this video. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, kindness is the strongest weapon you'll ever carry.